Protecting women or pushing an agenda? The View definitely crossed the line with this one for sure. But first, Jamil Hill argues on CNN that men playing women's sports is the modern day version of MLK's civil rights movement.
Bathrooms today. It's sports today. It's sports tomorrow. It's the military today.
No, it's also sports today, by the way.
Yeah, it is sports today. And
80% of Americans agree, by the way.
Oh, that's fine. And 80%, guess what? The majority sometimes is wrong. That also happens, right? Because the majority used to believe that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was somebody who was a threat, that somebody who was not a good American. The majority of people used to be against civil rights. Were they right? No, they weren't. And so, the other problem, Scott.
Ironically, the majority of those people were Democrats. That's not me just throwing it out there. That's factually, correct. In terms of civil rights, in terms of women's rights, it was the Democrats who fought against a lot of that, which baffles me as to why you would draw this comparison right there. But as I told you, The View, they definitely crossed the line with this one. This ain't equality. This ain't equality. The View just proved why women's sports are definitely in danger. But shout out to my guy, DJ T, for making sure that it's the law.
I wanted to ask you, because there's been all of this debate about whether transgender athletes should be able to compete. And last week, California Governor Gavin Newsom said that he thinks that trans athletes competing in girls' and women's sports was deeply unfair. Now,
I mean, it is.
I want to hear what you think, because I'll tell you what I think, too.
Yeah. The last time I played a sport, I was 6 years old, and I was on a soccer team, but I assigned myself as the nurse. So I sat with the Band-Aids. And so, in the words of Wicked, I am not that girl. But a dear friend of mine, Skylar, he is a trans athlete. His handle's Pink Manta Ray. That's someone who I really look to for guidance. And I think that is what's tricky, is like, now stepping in this identity. I'm still like a baby trans. I've only 3 years in. Tomorrow's my anniversary.
Your friend went Your friend went from female to male and is competing with other males.
Correct.
No.
Yes.
Her friend.
Yes. Her friend went from female to male and is competing with other males.
So Gavin doesn't have a problem with that.
Well, I think part of the problem that the trans community is facing, and it's the same problem that women face, is if you don't know anything about our bodies, you don't know how it works. So when you come in and you say, these are men, competing against women, you're assuming that the women are weak and just can't do anything except be here. Have you seen female athletes? They know what they're doing. So I'm not sure what's going on or why this is an issue. The same for me as when people say, I don't know how I feel about you. You do. God doesn't make mistakes.
No.
And the challenge is not to the trans people, it's to the people who are not trans. That's what God is looking to see, how you treat people.
Yeah.
That's what is happening. So I was just curious as to what I liked your answer.
Thank you.
I liked your answer.
Speaking of God, the Democrats have resorted to using his name in vain, even saying that Jesus is trans. But first, man, I just want to call out the inconsistencies here, man. These are the same people who are basically borderline on feminists. This is a clip that has resurfaced from earlier this year. This was posted in March, but it's been resurfacing amidst this conversation of men playing in women's sports and all the other good stuff. But they scream, "Believe all women," until it's a woman in a jersey asking for fairness. And we see right through their BS. This isn't, about hate. It's about biology. It's about fairness and the truth. That's just what this is all centered around. These people, for whatever reason, is just, I don't see any biological difference. Bro, that is a woman. That is a man. There are differences. Sure, we can come close to in some things, but I will never be able to give birth to a baby. But like I said, they are using God's name in vain. God is fair! God is fair! God is fair! this right here, it really, really just rattled my spirit when I seen it. You know, I didn't even want to say nothing, but when I heard them say God is trans with a straight face on national TV, I knew, you know, the plot was just lost. I knew it, man. It for me, it became, this isn't about inclusion anymore. Now this is about rebranding God to fit an agenda, and I'm just not down with that, which is exactly what this agenda of bringing Christianity and all of that is about. You know, being able to talk about religion, which the Democrats want to so badly remove. You see how it rebranded Kamala Harris's campaign. You know, God don't change for culture. Culture is supposed to submit to God, not the other way around. You know, if God is like, what makes them want to push this narrative specifically?
This email.
So this right here, a Colorado state senator just today stated that upon his death, he will stand before a transgender Jesus. This isn't a joke, y'all. I promise you, just like this post says, I wish it was.
This email, I'm going to end it here, says basically, I'm accountable to Almighty God because I'm standing up for equality. That my decisions one day, I will stand before him and be accountable. Well, this is what I believe. You ever seen that movie, Talladega Nights? And you see that section where they're talking around the dinner table and they're talking about what their favorite version of Jesus is. All right, baby Jesus. I love baby Jesus. And the guy goes, well, I love Leonard Skinner Jesus when angels are behind him and the choir is singing and he's playing Freebird. Well, on my day of judgment, I might be standing in front of trans Jesus. I don't know.
Now, this is a slippery slope. Today, God is trans. Tomorrow, which we actually seen basically today, your children, your kids don't need permission to transition. And Democrats don't act like they aren't connected. Because for whatever reason, moral and logic just seem, and common sense, I mean, yeah, well, logic, my fault. Common sense and logic to these people is just getting further and further away from them. Moving on. Democrat witnesses Fatima Graves claims she's an expert on women's rights. Yet she doesn't even know what a woman is. Listen to this insanity.
And as an expert on women's rights in sports and in society, I want to be clear here. Transgender women do not pose a threat to women's sports. Transgender women belong in sports. And I'm here because I care about all women and girls in sport. And I know that bullying trans kids and creating panic about the existence of trans people will not make us safer. It won't solve any of the problems that I named about inequity in sports. And the fixation on harming trans kids, it will not fix the problems of the American people. And as an expert on women's rights in sport,
it will fix a lot of problems for a lot of women whom have been pushed to the side because a man decided to enter into, or decided to put on some makeup today and go into the women's arena because he failed in his own, with his own, you know, species, so to speak, with his own sex. He couldn't accomplish it among men. So because we have biological differences, they're breaking records in women category. Male athletes, even after transition, typically retain advantages in bone density, lung capacity, and muscle mass. These are just facts. That creates an uneven playing field. based on speed, strength, and endurance. You know, they are not about protecting women's opportunities, this expert. Because how do they get equal access to scholarships if stuff like that happens, or recognition and records? That reduces their opportunities. What else do we have here? Oh, I was gonna remind y'all of Crockett. Do I gotta do it? Do I gotta do it? Do I gotta do it? This was also at the congressional hearing the other day. We heard it, but my journalistic duties.
Graves, I want to play a game. It's called Trump or Trans. You ready?
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to tell me whether or not it is Trump or trans people that are responsible. You understand?
Got it.
Okay, very good. The first one, gutted medical research.
Trump.
Kidnapping Americans and sending them to foreign countries, a.k.a. deporting them.
I can't do it. I ain't gonna be able to survive it, y'all. I'm not.
Never be forced to compete against mentally ill biological men who parade around in women's clothes. But we'll hear from witnesses today who had to face off against biological male competitors. This led one to suffer a life-altering physical injury from a volleyball spike to her head. The other was thrown out of a recent fencing competition for refusing to compete against a man. Why is this happening when we have federal laws on the books intended to foster women's sports? Back in 1972, Congress never be forced.
Think about it, right? A sport like MMA or rugby or wrestling, you got to think about the safety of our women, right? If you have these men competing in these sports, you got to think about force and impact. That definitely matters. You, as a man, you can unintentionally or intentionally create greater harm, even when matched by skill or weight class, when it comes to male and female. And then in addition to that, it definitely undermines the female role model. Who will women or young women look up to if it's just men? And y'all had playing with God, man. So Rep. Brian Gill roasts the chair of USA Fencing for suggesting parents who want to defend fair competition in women's sports are whiny. Oh my gosh.
Why did you post on social media for the world to see? You were asked in an anonymous question, which you posted online, are you okay with cis females being at a disadvantage? You said, yeah.
Yeah, I believe it was Congressman Cloud that had asked me about that, sir, and I'm happy to address it again. That was a one-word answer to a more nuanced topic, and I feel like if I could take it back and expound a little bit more than what I had there.
Reclaiming my time.
Sure.
Do you think that do you think that parents who don't want their daughters competing against men in women's sports are whiny?
No, sir.
You don't? Why did you write that on social media? I've got a picture here where you posted that. You were allegedly responding to a parent who didn't want their daughter being beaten up by men in sports competitions. You said, I'm not going to pull her from the sport and write a whiny email announcing my departure.
Sir, Mr. Congressman Jack had asked me about that, and want to be crystal clear, that was an inappropriate message.
Do you think that they're cowardly?
Sir, no, I don't. I don't at all. And in fact...
Why did you write that on social media?
I regret it, sir. I deleted it shortly after posting, and I certainly don't feel that way anymore. And given a lot of the messages that we receive, and even conversations that I've had...
Do you think that
Ms.
parents
Turner,
who don't want their daughters competing against men in sports should be compared to the Ku Klux Klan?
No, absolutely not. And I
why
acknowledge
did you
that I
do
said
that?
in the message, sir.
Why did
that
you
was
do that?
inappropriate.
That was inappropriate?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you're right. That isn't inappropriate. I'd like to read what you wrote and what you posted on social media.
Sure.
Responding allegedly to a lady who had these concerns. The only wizard that's going to dig you out of the myopic hole you've put yourself and your family in is one of the, quote, grand wizard variety.
Inappropriate, sir, and I acknowledge that I said it, and I will commit to never making a message like that again.
That was in response to a parent, according to you on social media, who had a problem with this. Was this a real email that you were responding to?
It was a real email, sir. I did not respond to it and hit send.
This was a real email. Did an actual parent write this, or did you write this email?
It was written by an actual person claiming to be a parent. They were not a member of our
Were you that actual person?
No, sir.
You were not that actual person, but you staged this whole interaction.
The response, sir, was not real, and I regret that.
Okay.
Of course you regret it now. It's convenient to regret it now. I'm not going to lie, this guy pissed me off. You call parents whiny for trying to protect their children? That's what you call a parent doing their job. Protecting your daughter's safety, fairness, and dignity, that's called parenting. That's not whining. I don't know. That's an attempt to try to, guilt trip and shame us parents, try to be silent in some sort of way. Tell y'all what, man, keep God first, because right now it's a spiritual battle going on. You got these Democrats out here, wilding out right now as it pertains to this women's sports situation. I don't understand what the logic is in this. And this further destroys the trust and the participation of the people that you guys are trying to attract, the Democrats. Again, keep God first. Please be safe. Go check on somebody today. You can quite literally be saving their life. Peace.